The lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and they get.
He missed the complete that. He's crazy.
Side Freitas is on the grass on the infield for 4. He slides through. He tags Richard Eck.
Even though it may be known for being cold for most of the year, the locals might just be able to warm you up with the language of love. Located in the thick of French Quebec in Canada, Montreal is the home of the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. But love is not necessarily what some drivers hold for this punishing street course. While quick laps will take flirting with disaster, the fastest drivers might just get away with a kiss of the wall. We'll see who's got the touch as we get ready to watch round 6 of the Ricmotech.com challenge. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth covering the GTE class is Brian Yazik. Next to him covering the GT3 and GTC classes is Sean Ambrose. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sean, Montreal's famous track is a take-no-prisoners affair with the way the walls line this place. Tell us about the course.
See, we got a new headshot for Brian Yazik with the people's eyebrow there. But today, Joe, we are here from the St. Lawrence River and Notre Dame Island. This 2.71 mile Montreal-based road course actually has more in has more in common with a street circuit. Drivers will need to negotiate
14 turns with several tight chicanes while avoiding the unforgiving walls that line much of the track. One mistake could end this 60-minute race, but whoever navigates this legendary circuit both safely and quickly will come away with key points in a championship battle that is far from decided. If you smell what I'm cooking. And we've got the doctor himself, Amjad Yaman, in the GSRC BMW, showing you just how to get around this fun little Canadian track.
All right, Kevin Brown is behind the wheel of the GSRC BMW, so let's do a lap around Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Down into turn 1, it's kind of a chicane, but it's got hairpin, so let's call it a haircane. Regardless, it's a very slow corner and a tricky passing spot despite the heavy braking. The inside puts you outside at the hairpin, and the outside runs the risk of getting chopped off when it switches. Now we head towards the 3-4 chicane. The exit wall just dares you to try getting on the power, but there's a fine line between looking brave and looking foolish. Flat out through 5, but it's blind, so keep your head up for accidents. Then we immediately brake for 6. Keep it tight to the left so you can really get on the power early through 7. If your car likes to push, you'll be at a huge disadvantage here because the wall on the outside is waiting for any understeering cars to paint it new colors. Now it's a gentle curve down to the 8-9 chicane. As always, set yourself up for the exit, but here it's really important. The run to the casino hairpin is not the place where you want someone to have an opportunity to get a nose in. Literally every other braking zone is a chicane, so everyone will be hungry for a straightforward pass. If they do get a run, your best hope is a switchback. Get your car slowed, get it to rotate, put the power down, and hope you can out-drag your rival. Thankfully, the draft will be there to help you along if you need it down this long straightaway. But once again, it'll be better to be fully past someone than fighting side by side, because now we'll be coming up on the infamous Wall of Champions. Take it easy on the big inside curves because an unsettled car is more likely to meet concrete. It's all a game of how much speed do I carry through here. For your ego's sake, treat it with respect. But as long as you survived, you've now finished a lap around Montreal. That's a lap here around the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Now that we've had a chance to compose ourselves, we've turned our attention here to the Porsche qualifying, the GTC cars. You can see Dargert currently leading the way with a 138.5. He's being closely chased by Workman, but he's got 4/10 to make up. Although it is a decently long lap around here, so the amount of time that he has to try and recover can be made up through all the number of chicanes, Sean. The question is, does Workman have enough time to try and get at least another one after this one? It looks like he's actually coming around with, I'd say, enough to get to the line for one more after this one.
Yeah, I think so, Joe. I'm checking on him now, and it looks like he's going to make it. Question is, what type of lap is he going to put up? Is it going to be enough? He's about 4/10 short. Can he close that down here?
Some of our drivers have already left the track as they're GTC qualifying winds down. Scott Johnson is not out there. Ralph Kemmerer. However, Matt Overton, sitting in 4th at the moment, is trying to get one more in. He is only, unfortunately, going to catch the checkered flag next time by. So this is his last lap that he's on right now. Workman comes around the hairpin currently. And I take back what I said. With about 15 seconds left, I think he's also going to get the checkered flag here. This is his last lap.
309 coming down this casino straight up into this very, very tight right-left combination that if you mess it up, the Wall of Champions is waiting on you to make that mistake.
And Dargert's actually coming around to see if he can improve on that 138.5 as he crosses the line. It looks like he does not, so Workman has a stationary goal to try and beat. And unfortunately, even though he improves by about a 10th, it is not enough. He's going to stay in 2nd.
Wow. That's a pretty big lap from Jay Dargett. I've got to be honest with you. That's pretty impressive, a 138.5.
Putting a line in the sand on what everybody has to try and overcome. Matthew Overton completes his lap. He improves his time, but does not improve his position. 5th is the best he's going to do. With no other Porsches behind him, he will not be demoted as well. And I believe Paul Hamilton is the last of them to come around to complete his lap. As we wait for the Indiana driver to come down that back stretch along the rowing lake. Right now he sits in 4th, as we mentioned.
So much time can be made and lost right here. Let's see how he gets through this corner.
One of the more difficult to drives, even though this is considered the amateur class here. Not a lot of aids on this Porsche to help you through the corners like the GT3s and GTEs have. So as he crosses the line, 139.5. Whoa! And Paul Hamilton.
Look at that.
Smashes it by 3/10 over Dargert. He saw the line and he crossed it. In the meantime, as we wait for laps to be put in and times to be set for our GT3 machinery, let's go to Sean to see where the points stand in our GTC championship.
Yes, sir. Bart Workman, the Skidmark Motorsports driver, sitting there at the top, followed by Scott Johnson, his teammate. They're just 5 points behind. Now, Jay Dargett, our man that was at the pole there until the last second, he sits in 3rd for All Balls Racing. And in 4th, his teammate, Paul Hamilton, our pole sitter now. You see how things are kind of shaping up here, 35 points behind. We're just now halfway into the season, so lots of ground can still be made up. Ralph Kemmerer certainly not out of this thing here in 5th. He is an independent, but pretty tight battle here so far at the top of the GTC standings.
Clearly, Hamilton is looking to turn this championship around to see if he can get back up at the top. But we're watching Kenneth Rodriguez coming around. No cars have put a time in yet, and I believe the first one that's going to get a lap is Trampus Kolthoff in the lone GT3 Ferrari. New car just released today out here in iRacing. See what that Gulf machine can do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as he comes up to the Wall of Champions, let's see how he handles these curves. Very cleanly through, nice and smooth. He was fastest in practice.
Well, we'll see. He's the driver, but it looked like he got up a little onto that curbing there for my personal liking, because as epic as it looks, taking these cars and slinging them over the curbing, you're just wasting time.
It appears that was not the first lap there for Kolthoff, as he didn't set a time. Either that or he had an off somewhere. In the meantime, Kenneth Rodriguez tops the chart. Dexter Castro comes along to put himself into 2nd.
Kenneth Rodriguez. There's a name I haven't heard of in a while. He was racing in the league I was in last year. And then when all of these GT3 and all this stuff started to come out, he kind of gravitated more that way.
Or maybe he was just trying to get away from you.
That's very possible. You guys let me out here. So what does that say?
Wouldn't be the first person I'd heard of that had done that. But.
I got a couple exes that'll say getting away from me was great. Unfortunately, I got a fiance that would argue the counterpoint.
Right now, everybody's trying to get away from last place, and very few of our GT3 cars are out on track right now, actually. I see only 4 in motion at the moment: Rodriguez, Castro, Lidke, and Kolthoff. And I know we have more than that in the GT3 field that has come in for practice at least. We're on board with Lidke at the moment. He set a time, but right now it was a bad first lap at a 1:45. Holding in the tire tracks of Kenneth Rodriguez, who currently holds the pole. Let's see if the draft helped him on. It looks like he's pulled over as Rodriguez comes off the racing line. Lidke crosses and only comes to a 1:43.3. Canadian driver obviously not at home.
Good point. I expected to see a little bit more there. Listen, he's still got a little bit of time here, Joe, to get in a good lap. We'll see what happens.
He's got about 4 more minutes, I believe, on the clock before his time is up here in the GT3 qualifying. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Ricmotech.com Challenge. 3 classes out here racing at Montreal. Round 6 of the Ricmotech.com Challenge. Kolthoff coming around.
Is he going to navigate this chicane a little better, or he may be catching off somewhere?
He's on an off lap. Look at the lap time right now, over 2 minutes long. He has yet to set a time. He's running out of opportunities. And once again, you can see he does not set a time. He must have had an off. Let's stay with Kolthoff to see. Oh, no, we switched over to Dexter here.
Current P1 time by about just under 0.3 of a second over Kenneth Rodriguez. Working that BMW there.
His favorite car. We were paying so closely attention to Kolthoff that we failed to notice that Castro was on a good lap. He's coming around for another one, seeing if he can improve it even more.
He's on a burner here. This is a good lap he's got going here. Got a good feeling about this one, Joe. He can navigate the wall well without putting his signature on it there as he's going by. We might have some.
Through the last chicane.
That's about the right amount of curbing you wanted to right there. Just enough to maybe lift it up a little bit, but...
No.
Well, we can blame Sean. He got our hopes up for that one.
Yeah, guess so.
Take a look at Kolthoff here, coming down the casino straight once again. Impressive that he's already got a paint scheme. That car just released today.
Well, I guess I'm assuming it translates pretty much exactly the same as the Ferrari GTE. So I think a few guys had a little bit of a safety net on that one.
Potentially. This is why I just drive them. I don't paint them.
Exactly. As Kolthoff hits the line, let's see if he can finally get a time in, and he does, and he puts it on pole.
He was just building up suspense. That's all he was doing. He was toying with us.
All or nothing for Trampus Kolthoff, the New York driver, puts a stunner down. There was some talk from other drivers about whether or not the Ferrari would be a little bit overpowered here on the build. Some would say this is proof that it is.
Yeah, and I'm sure that someone, if given a chance to interview this evening, will probably be sure to point that out. So
we have no doubt. We won't name names.
No. But has a good lap there for Kolthoff, though. Almost a full second over Dexter Castro, and coming around for another one.
Name names or use highlighter colors on the screen to highlight anybody. But anyways, so as Dexter Castro comes around, he's going to try and topple Kolthoff. He comes across the line, and once again is not able to improve. Stays at that 135 flat. We could see a dominant performance here at Montreal in the GT3s if this stays the same for Kolthoff. That's assuming that he can rifle off laps like that. We've seen he's had trouble getting clean ones here in qualifying.
And any good driver knows that, being able to run one lap at a fast pace, pretty much anybody can do that. It's putting the run together, especially over a 60-minute race, and not destroying these tires, because let's face it, with the way that it takes the way that it takes so much time to get tires changed, they're probably just going to be looking at fuel only on their stop, so you really can't abuse them. So this is going to be one of those tracks, especially with the age of the surface and all of those factors that come into play. that the driver with the smoothest foot and not the most lead-filled foot will probably come to the top.
Truth, if I ever heard it, Drew Lidke is coming around, and by the way, he did get himself a lap faster than the GTCs. He's currently sitting third, actually. He's managed to get ahead of Rodriguez at a 1:35.2. He puts another lap in, but he's not able to improve his time. Yes, he had an off somewhere in there.
And Brian, of course, you know one of the toughest places, we're talking about the grip here in this track surface. One of the toughest places to get that grip down is right there in turn 2, out of the Senna complex there, and then you've got to try and get grip again in turn 4. Both really challenging.
And Lidke's working up to a spot of the track that I feel is kind of underrated when it comes to your overall performance, and it's his left-right, because it leads to this really long straight. And I think a lot of people look at the casino straight and the casino hairpin as a big factor of the lap, and while it absolutely is, I've always focused, when I've raced this track across different disciplines, really focused on that part to get that run down the straightaway to come into this left-hander that he's on to set myself up for the casino corner and straight.
On screen, we saw Dexter Castro knock off a 1:34.7, which is another 0.3 off his time, but still keeps him about 0.6, over half a second away from Trampus Kolthoff. The GT3s have had the checkered flag come out. Drew Lidke, I believe, is the last one out on course before we get to the GTE class. So let's see what Lidke can do from third. Sadly, only seen, it looks like, 4 of the GT3s taking place today in that class's race as he comes through the wall of champions and onto the front stretch. The final run to the line. And this one looks like it might be slow, actually. Oh, no, it was not. It was faster.
1,000th of a second away from Dexter Castro, Joe.
It's a good lap right there.
Phenomenal lap from Lidke. It may be a one-horse race for first, but it is going to be tight for best of the rest. Well, let's go over to the GT3 standings and pull those up on your screen. Castro currently leading the way. Rocky Garcia, despite having the pace, has not had the best of finishes this season. That's why he has 36 points back. Tim Collier is even threatening him, along with Drew Lidke, both tied for third position. Only 2 points back from Rocky in second. And then you have a long ways back to Liam Park, who unfortunately is not racing today, as the GTE cars are now starting their first time laps. Jeffrey Ooms, who has been having a pretty good season, actually, really has come on to the Global Sim Racing channel with a splash in a couple series here. Comes up to the casino hairpin, squares that one off, takes it all the way up to the edge of the track.
I think there was a touch of wheel spin coming off of that corner too. It looked like the car was a little unsettled. Could have just been some low air pressures, or maybe jumped onto that gas just a little too quick. But we'll see how that lap comes together now. Hard onto the braking zone. Ooh, boy, that's deep. Sending it here through the chicane, jumping it all over. Here he goes. Woo! Yeah, I bet you one of those counted as an off track.
We'll find out as he comes to the line.
Yep.
And indeed, good call, Brian. Looks like he has unfortunately not put a clean one in.
Ooh, Paul Darling, Joe. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
He got his first one in.
1:6, absolutely. First one to put a time down, and Horsley, the next one to come up, is nowhere near it, a 33.6.
Ooh, 2 seconds worth of drop-off between Darling and Horsley, and Tarbox Jr. just came across the line as well, and with a 33.95. It's about 3.5 seconds, or 2.5 seconds off of that time. But Jimmy Hume, there he is.
Gets himself up in a second. Unfortunately for James Stacy, he had a spin in the Wall Champion chicane. And the bad news there, Brian, is that not only did that ruin his first lap, but his next one as well.
Aye.
There's the replay that we're going to get running in the Ford GT out there today. Not as popular as that GTE Ferrari. You can
Goes
see it
in
looks
there. Boy, that was real late onto the braking, and it looks like what happened was he's got a lot of rear brake dialed into that Ford GT right there, and it just kind of came around on him because he didn't hit the brakes until about the 2 sign.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly, Brian. I think you hit the nail on the head there with his mistake.
That is a very unnerving feeling too. When you're going off into a corner and the rear of that car wants to come out from around you, it's not fun. Not fun at all. We got Humberto Roca on the screen.
he's potentially setting up for a lap here. He does not have a time yet as he comes across the line.
Yeah, that one didn't count. So this is getting up to speed lap. Real nice there through that corner, coming up here. Bring it right out to the curbing and before the 1X.
Jimmy Hume has just improved his time, but unfortunately stays in third. He gets down to a 1:32.5. And critically behind him, Paul Darling comes out, but behind Jimmy Hume. So he is going to have to slow up and give some space here.
Roca's lap is just looking nice right now. The car doesn't look very out of state or out of shape. It seems like he's got the right amount of brake. He's not stabbing it. He's just kind of rolling into it. The car doesn't really seem like it wants to get out of the way as he's flashing the headlights to, who was that right in front of him? Horsley. Down here into the casino corner. A little wide, but cuts it out. There's a couple different methods to attack that corner. That was one of them.
Roca, of course, won the last round at Sonoma. See if he can repeat the feat here in Montreal. He's coming down that casino straight up towards the final quarter, spotting his brake marker. No anti-lock brakes here in the GTE class. A lot harder to slow these cars down. He's aggressive over that first curb, and he's already catching up to Samuel Scott ahead of him, but should not hurt him on this lap at least. Let's see if he gets about... Whoa!
To that lap looked good.
Over Paul Darling.
Okay, here comes Jimmy Hume on a burner here, guys. Coming across the line right now.
Has been 32.89. But he does not improve his time.
He's got, how much time we got? He's got a couple minutes to take a couple stabs at it. That corner exit there might not have been the best. Got Samuel Scott just getting out of the way. Thank you. Car looks a little beaten up in the corners too. Or is that just the design and I'm just hallucinating?
I'm not seeing any damage here on our screens, but
all right, so it's just the screen. Never mind.
Yeah. And we should note for our viewers that clock up in the corner, the end of the qualifying for the GTEs ends at the 5-minute mark. So that's why we're saying they only have a couple minutes left here as we watch Peter Hebron from the Mid-South come through that last chicane, bounding over those curves. Hebron still with a slow time, but as he comes across, let's see if this one finally gets up there. It does, but he sticks it in the middle of the GT3s. That's not going to do him any favors.
James Stacy there on track in that Ford GT as well.
We saw him have a spin earlier on in qualifying. He's still yet to set a time. Practice.
This one might just, if he's got, what did we say? That's at 5 minutes, so he's got 1:55 right now. So he knows he's got about 2 stabs at it.
This one should count unless he had an off. Let's hope that he can navigate this last chicane correctly. Comes in there a little bit more timid.
It was a little timid, but sometimes in road racing, as both of you guys both very well know, sometimes slow is faster.
Absolutely.
34 flat.
All right, he gets himself in front of all the GT3s, and that's probably what he really was wanting with that lap. Although he is only a 10th faster than the Ferrari GT3 of Kolthoff for now. Pretty much every one of our GTE cars are out on track at the moment.
Yeah, and all still scrambling for that just little extra bit of speed, Joe. Trying to find just a thousandth of a second if they can get it faster up the board here.
Darling is going to try and topple Roca. sits in second. He's 2/10 back. And he's on an outlap, I understand, so this one is not going to count.
He's going to get it in under the time, though. So this next one, this is going to be the money lap for him.
Oh, and Roca is
the
not
Wall
going
of
to get another
Champions
try.
claims its first victim. At least that we're aware of.
Let's keep our eyes on Darling to see what this lap has in store.
Michigan man himself.
And right behind him, who is going to get another try, is Jeffrey Ooms, who's only less than a 10th back. In fact, 2 100ths behind him currently. They're going to come across in succession. So as soon as Darling finishes, we'll jump back to to see if he can try and do better as well.
Oh, this going to be good. You can even see him on the track, looking back there. To Ohms, he can look up the track and see who he's chasing, and that's just it's just such a mental, maybe a mental high, a stimulant, something like that. When you can see the guy that you're trying to chase down, it kind of works both ways. As you see in Darling here, cut through this corner, take a little wide, through the middle low, and then exit out wide, bring it out to the rumble strips. Didn't hit them. Ohms kind of following the same trend. But like I said, if you're looking up the track, you're focusing on that car. You get this kind of red mist sort of situation. And if Ohms isn't careful, he could overdrive a corner.
Absolutely. It's a carrot on a stick, which can get you into trouble. But Darling, is he going to have trouble with this last chicane? Whoa!
Oh, boy. Oh, that may have counted as an off-X or a 1X.
We'll find out. He comes across the line.
Whoo!
Oh, just a 10th up, but that's not going to be enough. And Ooms topples him.
Oh. Wow, what a run there by Ooms. Oh,
Anything you can do, I can do better.
Darling may be regretting how aggressive he was in that final corner. James Stacy is coming towards the line as well. He's managed to get ahead of Samuel Scott on the timing sheets.
Oh, that's not going to work.
This one is absolutely not going to count. Behind him, Peter Hebron's trying to get himself out of the GT3s.
Can he do it?
135 flat.
34.7.
Oh, just barely still inside there. Gets ahead of Dexter Castro, but not ahead of the pole sitter in the GT3s. And that's going to complete all of our cars doing laps out here in the GTEs, I believe. Darling, I do not think this lap is counted, and yes, it does not. So, with that, let's go through our GTE order of the championship. And Brian, what are we looking at?
You've got Jeffrey Ooms on top with 119 points. Paul Darling chasing him up the rankings there. 24 markers back, and then 27 markers back off the lead. Humberto Roca should be a name that is very familiar to any fans of the champion or the Ricmotech Challenge. Oh my goodness, Ricmotech. There we go. No, never mind. Ricmotech. There we go. Got it. There we go. Sean had his moment. I had mine. Jimmy Hume there in fourth, 54 markers back. And Victor Tanaka doesn't look like he is here tonight, but he is 65 markers back in the fifth position.
And with that, we are going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back after that with the starting grid, and then we go racing for 60 minutes here in the Ricmotech.com Challenge. Welcome back to Montreal. Here we're watching round 6 of the Ricmotech.com challenge. We've got 60 minutes of racing here on the Global Sim Racing channel coming up, but the grid has been set with the 3 classes that are running today. And the GTEs, we're going to start off with Brian reading us off those.
Humberto Roca on pole to his outside, Jeffrey Ooms. Row 2, Paul Darling on the inside, Jeffrey Hume on the outside of row 2. There we go. Robert Tarbox Jr. in 5th, Andrew Horsley 6th, James Stacy 7th, Samuel Scott in 8th, and that technically ends up GT3. You also have Peter Hebron back there in the 10th position.
On the pole by quite a margin, it's Trampus Kolthoff starting off the GT3s. Dexter Castro will be behind him, 11th overall, but 2nd in class. 3rd is going to be Drew Lidke with Kenneth Rodriguez starting 4th. We believe Jordan Weeks might start the race. We will find out, but let's go to the GTCs.
All right, Joe, let's do it. Paul Hamilton going to be your pole sitter there, right next to Jay Dargett. Bart Workman qualifies 3rd, Scott Johnson 4th, as our usual cast of characters right there. Matthew Overton starting 5th, Ralph Kemmerer 6th, Anthony James in 7th, and Mark Ruggiero, the Florida driver, did not take a qualifying lap and is slated to start 8th.
Relatively smaller field than what we're used to in this series still, with potentially 21 drivers out on track on a very tight circuit. I'm sure we can expect a bit of action and, of course, some traffic to come into play. And you know, Brian, we had a number of drivers talking beforehand in the forums for the CMS website that they were a little bit nervous about coming here. And I think that's understandable with the way that this track tends to treat cars by the end.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, you've got some wide open spaces followed by some very hairy and very tight chicanes, or very hairy racing going into the tight chicanes. I don't want my viewers to get a wrong image there. So it's really interesting, though, and especially with how you get the S's there in the 1 and 2 sort of complex. And that really kind of has to get these guys filtered down. But even the initial race start, because we have this rolling start, you know, about the only safe rows are going to be about the first 3, because then the green potentially could jump out as these guys are trying to go through the chicane. And that just is chaotic. So as simple as the track looks from an overview standpoint, if you were to just watch a lap around here, I think it's not that bad. There's just all these little nuances of this of the speedway that can really just reach out and bite you if you're not 100% on your game.
And speaking of being on your game, it's time for that traditional question. And just to give Brian a little bit more time to think about things, let's go to Sean. Who's your pick today in the GTCs?
Oh, boy, I'll tell you what. Honestly, the qualifying for it was so competitive, George. It's a bit of a toss-up today, a bit of a crapshoot here in the Porsches. But maybe this is Bart Workman's day. Let's give it. I'm gonna go with Workman. I got a hunch.
Yeah, Workman has been strong in the past, even though he qualified 3rd. In the GT3s, I'm gonna have to go with a safe bet. I think Trampus Kolthoff is going to be hard to beat today, even though he looked a little bit shaky in qualifying. I think he's got things worked out by now. What about those GTEs there, Brian?
I am going to go on a very short limb here, and either, you know what, I'm going to go with the Michigan man, Paul Darling. I always pull for my old Michigan people, and I see on the screen there, he is a Michigan native,
Whether the
so
mitten can
I'll
deliver.
run with that. Exactly. Here we go. Pace car has made its way off. Field is in the control of Roca. Getting him pace down, and here we go. Green flag is in the air. There we go. They didn't quite get off as quick as I thought to. Is a side-by-side going down here into the first corner. Roca is going to have to face off the challenge from Ohms. Ohms is going to have the inside. Oh, he very wisely decides to maybe give that spot away. And then just behind him, Darling takes a wide exit. He's got a Horsley sitting there waiting for him to come in.
A lot easier for the GT3s as they've all gotten single file. Kolthoff leads Castro.
Oh, we've got it off. It's right off of the third corner there. And it's Paul Darling. Oh, that's quick, Jinx.
We'll have to come back to it a little bit later. Not a lot of excitement in the GT3s. Let's go to the GTC start.
All right, Joe, boy, Paul Hamilton got off very quickly. Jay Dargett got there with him. Scott Johnson and Workman are nose to tail right now. Behind them, just getting through turn 4. Everybody off to a good start. Mark Ruggiero did not start this race.
Bit of a pass in the back of the pack as James is passed by Weeks, who moves himself up into the 6th position in that class, 7th position rather. Oh, excuse me, actually Weeks is GT3, so he's trying to work his way through the GTCs actually.
Yes, he is, Joe. Oh, and trouble just in front of him. Oh, it's Overton and Scott Johnson.
I was down into turn 8. Let's take a look at that replay real quick. It looks like Workman was behind, and then from way back, Overton just outbraked himself.
Ooh.
Came from 2 cars back. Understandable that that Johnson just was not seeing that one coming.
So you're going to see what happens to Darling that I was talking about up here. Get the replay queued up. Going in here to turn 2, or turn 3, and it's his exit right here. The car just gets, I think he gets up a little bit, jump on the curving, drives it out a little too far, and boom.
Got very lucky that the car behind him was able to miss him. Just barely tapped the wall, but then could not get turned around, unfortunately.
He lost a ton of time trying to get that ship righted.
And if I remember correctly, Darling made a mistake at the start of last race as well, and he's actually
more
spinning
trouble
right now.
for him. Boy, right in front of Scott Johnson, who was trying to recover himself from that accident just a moment ago.
I have a feeling Darling is not going to be a fan of me.
And Overton has a spin trying to stay out of him.
Oh boy, trouble for Jordan Weeks, guys. More trouble for Jordan Weeks. He got off in turn 4.
Well, that was an attempt to try and pass Jay Dargert, actually. Dargert looks like side-by-side contact. Spun him out. Dargert had to take evasive action across the grass. We're going to watch here from onboard Weeks. A little bit of a late move, but Sean, I'd say he was well inside by that point.
Yeah, boy, Joe, that's a tough one right there. I don't know. It's early days in this race. You maybe could have opted to let him go and take his line through there, but that's a tough call.
It is early days, but up at the top of the field, Roca and Ooms are starting to stretch away from the rest of the GTEs right now. Horsley 6 seconds back, rounding out the podium and having to worry more about behind him with Jimmy Hume giving chase.
Hume has been right up tailpipes there of Horsley throughout these early parts of the run. He was actually a lot closer, but coming through the right-hander there at the end of this little short chute coming up, the casino corner, he either right in front of him. There goes Horsley.
Manages to rejoin the track, but you can see the positions he's losing with the lost momentum through there. And Peter Hebron might even be able to get him as he sneaks up the inside, but we're going to go to the replay, where it looks like on that second curb, oh, he was already getting loose before that.
There's that rear brake I was talking about in qualifying. He might want to dial a notch or two towards the front before maybe coming down the casino straight here and try to get some front brakes back into that thing.
Hebron was giving him a run for his money, but the momentum is going to Horsley down into the braking, and he's going to be solidly ahead, be able to get that position back as he really clatters the curbs there to complete lap 4.
Now Horsley is going to be chasing after it, basically like holding the pin or holding the grenade in his mouth and chasing after it. He's got a very fast car, didn't impact it at all, and now he has to work his way. Was running P3 overall, and now is sitting back to P7.
Haven't seen much of the GT3s, but there's really not much to report, unfortunately, Sean.
Yeah, Kolthoff off to a really, really strong start. Castro 3.4 seconds back, trying to reel him in here. Kolthoff just has really, really good pace right now. Drew Lidke another 2 seconds behind Castro, Joe. That is your top three. Kenneth Rodriguez keeping it kind of close right now. He's
guys, really James Stacy. Sorry to interrupt you, Sean.
No problem.
James Stacy is having all sorts of problems. He basically tank slapped the fence coming through turn 3, and that car has been crab walking all the way down these straights. When I look back at him, he was actually buried it in the wall, and I think that was the only way the thing was going straight. Here's the initial incident. Ooh, who was that right there that just got by him? But then watch how this car tries to crab walk all the way down, long way around when your car is wounded.
That was Samuel Scott who snuck through.
It's going to require some extensive repairs and probably a hammer or two to repair these $250,000 machines.
As we come back live, you can see the Illinois driver is attempting to limp it home, but not with the greatest of success right now.
Brian, is that how much you paid for yours on iRacing?
Yeah, I got a great deal.
Did you get that deal?
On it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 3 pieces of content, right?
Also, we should note that Paul Darling has retired from the race, unfortunately. Battle for the lead is on. Jeffrey Ooms giving a go around the outside of Roca as they head down towards turn 8. This is going to be a hard ask. It's a game of chicken under braking as they come under the bridge. This one's going to go to Roca at first, but
here comes the crossover. Switchback, and now Ooms is going to have the preferred lane, and I think he's actually going to clear Roca here. But now watch for the fend back on Roca. Is he going to take it smart? Takes it through that corner. Maybe he got Ooms was able to get sorry, I had to get that out of my brain. Ooms was able to get out of that corner a lot better than Roca was. It seemed like Roca maybe had some understeer that he had to deal with. Whereas Ooms was able to take a lot more of a smoother exit through the corner.
Wonder if there's a difference in how the cars are handling their tires as the race goes on, because this is Ford versus Ferrari, as Roca really taking a lot of curb through the final chicane. Didn't hurt him, but didn't do him any favors either.
Joe, we've got a race going on here in the GTC class. Bart Workman is starting to pick up Paul Hamilton just a bit. He was a second faster on that last trip around, and he is starting to reel him in just a bit. In fact, Hamilton smokes the tires just a bit there, getting into that turn.
Once again, no anti-lock brakes on these Porsches.
Workman digging right now here early.
Ooh, another little puff of smoke. Hamilton's starting to feel the pressure here, making little mistakes here and there. He may have gotten the pole, but he has to run this pace and keep ahead of Workman the whole way through these 60 minutes. We're only 10 minutes in.
Oh, and when you're the driver, when you're in Workman's shoes and you're watching the driver ahead of you make mistakes, you get a big grin right on your face, just because you know that he keeps making these mistakes. You're gonna reel him in. Oh, there's more brake lockup going into the final chicane there.
Another big puff of smoke. Sean, will these Porsches start to lose their tires if you do that too much? Do they overheat?
Oh, definitely, Joe. Yes, they will overheat, and they will be a problem. This truck is tough enough to find grip on. If you abuse the tires, you're going to pay for it, and recovery not easy because of all the hairpins and tough chicanes on this track.
Now the car you see behind them is...
I'm sorry, big mistake out of Workman there, just right in front of Jordan Weeks, who's still coming up through the field.
There's that GT3 car trying to get up to the other cars in his class. He's got a long ways, about 30 seconds, up to Lidke, who's currently holding 4th.
I was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong here, gentlemen, but don't these cars, these GT3 machines, don't they have a different tire model? Or at least one that interacts with the dynamic surface a little differently than what viewers on the GS or on the Global Sim Racing channel might see on the Oval Base series?
They definitely behave a little bit differently from Oval, and you can see Weeks is really causing a bit of a headache for these GTC cars as now he's trying to overtake our GTC leader. There's definitely a worry about overheating the tires. I mean, despite the fact that the track temperature is only 83 degrees, you keep smoking them. And look at the speed difference that this Porsche has. But I think under braking is where we're going to see, yes, as he comes back and Weeks is finally able to overtake him, but not without setting a few problems for our GTC Hamilton that allows Workman to get right back up there. Things getting interesting here in the slowest class of the three. It may be considered the amateur class, but the battles are fierce. We can tell you that in these Porsches.
Peter Hebron had him off there. It was right at the end of the straight right before turn 8. Just overcooked it just a hair. You'll see on the replay here. I think maybe looked up in the mirror or looked up somewhere and just completely overshot the braking zone there.
Had to bound over that escape road. Might have taken a little bit of under tray damage from that, unfortunately. But I can tell you from experience driving these GTEs as well, Brian, is that it's so easy to lock them up without those anti-lock brakes in these GTEs.
Well, to quote into my level of expertise, do you really think it's easy to get a 3,400-pound stock car to wheel down?
This is true.
And I don't have anti-lock brakes.
Very true. Completely
Gotta
different
throw
beast.
some shade. Gotta throw some shade.
Dexter Castro right now is trying to find any sort of sunlight in the tunnel as he continues to lose time on our GT3 leader Kolthoff, a whole 6 seconds ahead at this point.
You guys can keep the camera pointed this way. Ooms is starting to really check out and put some distance on Roca. Made the pass, and now the gap is about 1.6 seconds between overall P1 and 2.
So while Roca may have had the qualifying pace, it seems like Ooms has found the setup to get the car across these 60 minutes a little bit faster.
Guys, Hume had a moment right before... Oh boy, yeah, he had a big moment right before the chicane.
He's got a bit of a weird situation here going on with Overton ahead of him and Tarbox behind him.
Yeah, pull up, if I can get Director Extraordinaire Amjad to take a look at that, you'll see exactly what happened. Oh yeah, keep looking at this. Don't talk about what happened.
Yeah, that was Overton in the GTC class letting these two through, but this is for position between Tarbox and Hume. He's trying to hassle him. This is for that third spot as they come up to turn 3. One of those tricky corners where you really have to flirt with the wall on the outside. Both drivers taking it right up to the edge, especially Hume. 6 sometimes offers opportunities to pass off the apex for Jimmy, and that's going to hurt him a little bit. You can see the time gained by the green and black car of Hume.
Don't need a stopwatch to see that sort of game right there.
Under the bridge one more time, down to turn 8. Tarbox starting to smell blood in the water once again, gaining under braking, looking a little bit stronger here than Jimmy. They've got more traffic now coming up in the form of Kemmerer and the Porsche. These cars are very fast in the straight line. You can see it interrupts the racing line for Jimmy. Hume can't track out fully. Is this going to give an opportunity for Tarbox? Is he going to maybe duck into the slipstream of the Porsche? Punches a big hole in the air. Doesn't quite get behind him.
He was deciding which way to go. If he wanted to get behind the Porsche or try to keep the draft going, gets onto the binders hard here. You're coming through the final chicane.
I wonder if there's more downforce on the car of Tarbox, as he really looks so much stronger through these chicanes.
I think really what it's coming down to is he's got his setup built to be able to grip from a more mechanical side on these lower end or slower parts of the track, maybe giving up a little bit on the top end.
Hey, I got something big happening here in GTC. It's now, the fight is on here. Workman trying to make a move on Hamilton, down letting this traffic get through here. Not just any traffic, Jeffrey Ooms coming through, but you look there at what Hamilton's doing here. He's trying to hold off Workman. Workman making it very, very tough right now.
There's another lockup from Hamilton into turn 8, and they've got more traffic. Roca, who is, remember, trying to chase Jeffrey Ooms in that lead GTE car. He gets sandwiched between them and the casino hairpin. Has to wait, gets into the slipstream of Hamilton just momentarily, pops back out and gives chase, but you can see all the time that was lost by that interruption. Also get a good sense of the speed of these Porsches down a straight line.
They really do have some grunt to them, Joe. I will tell you though, man, they are a bear to stop. They do not stop like a GT3 car. I can tell you that they're a little bit more of a challenge to get slowed down and slowed down, and able to turn there in the real technical sections of this course. But man,
About 30 seconds ago, if we could get an onboard for Robert Tarbox, he had to take off the track to try and get some GTC cars.
I was watching that battle, and he came on the microphone right afterwards and said, "Oh, that didn't work." He lost a lot of time trying to chase down Hume.
You can see off the exit of the corner, just got squeezed a little bit. Whoop.
It's right here. There, straighten that out a little bit. You'd be all right. But he's locked back into the rear bumper, though. Yeah. But with all that being said, he's fully locked back into the rear bumper of Hume, and that gap is shrinking down just a little bit, lap by lap, corner by corner.
Well, we might have to go to the lead of the GTCs, though, because Workman is all over the tail of Hamilton, and they're coming up one of the most popular passing spots, but he elects not to take it.
Ooh, almost spins him.
Could have given a little bit of chrome horn there to Hamilton, but managed to stay out of him. He's going to get another bite of the apple as they come down the casino straight towards the final chicane. He falls back a little bit. I don't think he's going to have a go. He was much closer last time into that sharp hairpin.
Joe, they're popping 160 down into the braking zone there just before the hairpin.
Very different lines between the two drivers through that last chicane. Down into the Senate S. Workman looking incredibly patient. Oh, off the apex, though. Maybe a little bit thrown off by how close he was to Hamilton. And you can see that's going to hurt him coming off the corner.
Tarbox has a problem here, guys. He's really slow, and now the car picks back up again.
Possibly a slowdown penalty for cutting the course somewhere?
But where?
Oh, and it's the last chicane.
There's our answer.
Yeah,
it was the
got
last
over the radio. No, our viewers can't hear the driver communications, but we can, and he got immediately on the radio as soon as we said something talking about just how much he didn't like the last chicane. But we might have another correct course because Hamilton was way to the inside, and there you go. He pulls over. This is going to be an easy take for the lead for Workman.
Hamilton cuts it in turn 3. We're going to see it here on the replay.
He was way inside there. Did he get oversteer on the entry? Looked to me like just plain oversteer.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Joe. Back, though, to that penalty there at the Wall of Champions. Joe, that could be as much as 2.5 seconds. I had a couple in practice where I intentionally went over to see what I would pick up, and it can be pretty extreme.
Well, in the overall swing for Box, he was about a second off of the rear bumper of Hume, and now he is about 5 seconds adrift.
So maybe it thought he took a little bit more than usual there. And that third place is just out of reach. He's going to have to do a lot of work to regain that ground on Jimmy Hume, who, by the way, we should probably mention, he's 22 seconds behind Humberto Roca, who's holding second ahead of him. That is an incredible pace that our two leaders in the GTEs are running.
Yeah, Roca and Ooms are off in a field, all to which their own.
We're only 20 minutes into this race, too, so that's phenomenal that they've been able to manage. Yeah.
Roughly. I mean, my math skills aren't the best. That was pretty easy.
I know you haven't been on in a while, but you should know well enough that we don't do math on GSRC.
Yes.
I can do plus and minus, and don't ask me to multiply, and don't even ask me to solve for X.
No, you're not allowed to do any. Period.
10-4. Talk. Got it. I'll do what I'm good at.
Travis Koltoff as well. Not as big of a lead, but certainly looking solid. We wondered whether or not he could keep the pace throughout the race as he had trouble getting the laps in and qualifying, but about 8.5 over, well, that's over Peter Hebron, actually, who's got Dexter Castro just behind him. So it is roughly 9 seconds back to second place in the GT3s at the moment. Castro, of course, not racing Hebron, who's the GTEs. I'm sure he'd want him to pick up the pace maybe a little bit, get out of his way.
He's hitting that flashlight buttons. Try to subtly send a message.
Well, he's definitely in the toe here, coming up the straight.
Believe
it's way off there. Boy, that's costing Dexter a lot of time. See how soon he started to break there, Brian?
Yeah, that was definitely a for lack of a better word, a lazy entry.
Well, we are starting to get to the pit window here. About 10 minutes on either side for most of these cars that they can come in, but at least in the GT3s, we know most of the drivers like to run it as long as possible. As we watch the second in the GT3s, Drew Litke, third, excuse me. This is actually a battle for position. This is Kenneth Rodriguez just behind him, trying to take away that final podium spot. And I believe it was either the GT3s or the GTEs last round where we only had a podium left in one of the classes come the end of Sonoma. I think it was the GT3s, actually.
Yeah, it was the GT3s, Joe. I had to kind of pull it up in my memory as well. Rodriguez all over him here, but just doesn't seem to have the line. Lidke just looks a little better right now. They are going to have to work through some traffic here. Ralph Kemmerer just there in front of him, and then they'll have to get around Matthew Overton just a little bit more up the track.
This is our closest battle on track for position at the moment. Everybody else has spread themselves out nicely. But with a small field here today, only 5 GT3s out on track, 5 started. None of them have retired. We could still potentially see a situation where only the podium is left running, or even less than that, come the checkered flag as they come up on traffic in the form of Ralph Kemmerer. A lot earlier braking point for those GTC cars, and he dutifully gets out of the way and lets them continue on their own. Actually, I'm a little surprised that our attrition has not been higher. This track tends to be known for gobbling up cars and spitting them out. Right now, Paul Darling is the only one who has retired so far.
And I think a lot of these guys kind of settled into a groove. The initial laps around here are pretty chaotic, but then once everybody gets a little bit of gap, everybody kind of settles into the rhythm and the rolls and just decides to try to finish this race. Now, I mean, it can sneak up and get people. There's no doubt about that, but for the most part, we've kind of reached that point where in the just shy of halfway, where things are going to kind of lull down and we'll kind of go from there.
In the GTC class, Jade Target is really digging right now, man. He is starting to pick up Paul Hamilton. Another fast lap for Target that time. Really starts to reel him in here now. Be careful here because you got to deal with Samuel Scott coming through in his GTE. But again, I like the pace out of Target right now. He's really starting to make something happen.
Remember, Hamilton surprised us with that pole right at the end with a decent margin. And it looks like in the race he's not doing so handy, as you pointed out, with Dargert really bringing him in. Samuel Scott getting by now. He should easily be able to get by into the braking for 8.
Yeah, Hamilton had a good start to the race, but man, that slowdown penalty he got really crippled him, and the fact that he keeps locking these tires up, that's not going to pay dividends for him the longer this run goes.
Little by little, Jay Dargert chips away at Paul Hamilton's second place, thinking he could get one more step up the podium here in the amateur class. Coming down that back stretch one more time. As we said, there's no real other close battles out on track. We were watching one of them between Rodriguez and Lidke, but that has pulled away a little bit, so this is the closest one at the moment. We'll go back to the GT3s if this one splits apart or if things start to erupt over here, but kind of want to see what Dargert can do as we see another puff of smoke down into turn 1, and they've got Trampus Kolthoff, the lead of the GT3s, trying to get by, almost gets into the back of Dargert.
Excuse me, trying to come through.
He's going to get an opportunity here in a second. Just a little bit of patience.
He's not under threat. If I was Trampus, cuts it very close. Oh, and even got a wobble coming out of turn 5.
And you can see in the little onboard dash, or the little pop-up dash right there, that Porsche isn't going anywhere.
Wow, that was a very risky move for Kolthoff considering the gap that he's extended.
Yeah, that was about as close as I don't think you got a sheet of paper in between their cars. And no, Dargert runs off.
Dargert maybe being a little bit unsighted by that GT3 car. Locks him up. Let's watch the replay. Sure, he's thankful for all that grass around the outside. You're going to see as he comes up for the braking. Just did not anticipate whether the car would stop. Has to cut across. That does
commentator's curse.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
That's 2 out of 3, Sean.
Yeah.
I curse Darling.
We're on a roll, baby. We're on a roll.
You're up next, Sean. Well, Kenneth Rodriguez was closing up on the back of Lidke, but went way wide around the outside of Casino, and that cost him a couple tenths.
I'm sure he's passing those DRS signs meant for the McLaren F1 going, if I only could hit a button. He is within the 1 second bracket.
Both of them managing
right there.
Yeah, to navigate successfully through that final chicane. Doesn't gain a whole lot, maybe 1 more tenth on Lidke for that 3rd position. They come down to turn 1. Both of them nice and tight at that first curb. Squaring off the second one, much more farther to the inside for Rodriguez, though.
I like his style here. Rodriguez is really smooth around this track. You really don't see that car stepping out. You really don't see it understeering or oversteering and anything like that. He's just steadily just putting laps in and doing work.
Jersey driver doing what he can to just hold the car on track and get his laps in, hoping maybe for a mistake from Lidke to offer him an opportunity. Keep glancing up at Dexter Castro, and I see that 4/10 of a second gap on Hebron. And I have to remind myself that's a GTE car ahead of him.
I was looking at the same thing a second ago.
Unfortunately, those two continuing to lose ground on Kolthoff. I'm not sure that Castro's really losing time behind him. He doesn't seem too annoyed by being held up behind this Ford GT.
No,
it doesn't seem to be.
No, lap time wise, he's pretty much all right.
And that'll free him up. There goes Peter Hebron.
That'll do it.
Starting our pit stops almost exactly at the halfway mark.
Just a little bit above it. I'm assuming, probably, like I said pre-race, I'm assuming fuel only.
Had a bit of a hairy moment with Lidke, and actually, he got a slowdown. Lidke got a slowdown, and that hands it over to Kenneth Rodriguez. Let's go back to the final chicane, if we can pull the replay up. Here it is. He was trying to avoid getting into Scott Johnson in the GTC Porsche. You can see, and he takes to an escape on the inside of the curb, but that bit him.
Just gives up that inside there, Joe.
I talked a bit ago about Rodriguez waiting patiently, and it paid dividends.
To quote the great Murray Walker, with half the race completed, there's still half to go.
Is that the one you're holding on to there, bro?
That is exactly the one I was holding on to. That's for my buddy Sam Ryman. I know he's probably out celebrating his birthday today.
He is, indeed. Yes, a happy birthday to Sam Ryman.
I know Sam and I have had a couple conversations on good old Murray, so I knew what I was filling in for him. I had to come up with a good Murrayism.
Best of our wishes over to Sam, and can't wait to have him back. But in the meantime, go enjoy yourself, buddy. As
Joe really can't wait to have you back. They keep sliding the chairs over, and I'm getting closer to the door. It's strange.
Well, we're not sure what you ate for lunch, but anyways, as we watch Jeffrey Ooms lead the way in your class in GTE, he's now got 2 seconds over Roca. He's not been streaking away, but Roca's keeping him honest.
That's the thing, is Roca, it seems like Roca is just letting the race unfold exactly the way he wants it to. He let that go in, he let that gap go out to about 3 seconds, and then about 5, 6, 7 laps ago, somewhere in that range of things, he was very quietly chipping away. It wasn't a big leap and bound, maybe a tenth or two here and there. And then all of a sudden, we get past halfway, and that gap that was 3 seconds, well, now the lap car is going to mess with that, or the slower traffic is going to mess with that a little bit, but it was down to 1.4 right before that corner.
Guys, Castro in and out of the pit. Sorry, Joe, I stole your thunder there, buddy.
It's A-okay. That's
Anthony James in pit road, too.
All right, so a number of drivers really starting to execute their strategies. Not really much variance we're seeing. Just splitting it perfectly in half. That good old Stars and Stripe Porsche that we're used to seeing here in the CMS series.
Castro was the first of the GT3s to come in. Anthony James, the first of your GTZ class to come in for a bit.
Oh, and Castro is able to get past Hebron here in the pits. Makes me wonder if Castro was saving fuel a little bit, maybe in the wake of that GTE car.
It could have been. I mean, less time on pit road, more time on track. It's a really simple equation.
He might not want to be in front of him for too long, although Hebron loses time as he locks them up into the final chicane. That will free up Dexter just slightly. Dexter always bemoans the lack of top speed of the BMW, or maybe he was waiting behind Hebron to try and add to that top end. Meanwhile, Dargert has actually caught back up to Hamilton here, despite his mistake in turn 8 a few laps ago. Hamilton continues to lock his tires up into a number of corners. That could be what is helping Dargert gain that ground.
Yeah, well, before... Man, that's a close moment for Dargert there.
That was Jeffrey Ooms. That was our GTE leader that he chopped off there.
And that's the second time that he and Jeffrey have gotten together here close on course. And both times it's been very, very exciting.
Look at what that has done for the battle for the lead, though. Remember, Roca was up to 2 seconds. It's now down to a second, even though he had to go around the outside of Dargert.
And Roca caught Dargert at the better spot than Ooms did.
Up next is going to be Hamilton for Ooms. He's not out of the woods quite yet. And remember, Ooms and... look at that. As he loses even more time. It actually causes both of our GTE leaders to have to check up and lock their brakes.
Pull out the accordion, it's time to polka.
I was just going to say that I feel like if I was either of these drivers, I'd maybe try to take to the pit and get out of this traffic.
It's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, trying to sit there and race around it, race through it, you're at your window. Just throw it into pit road, man.
Both of these pairs are battling for the lead in their class.
Again, this is that red mist of war I know we used to talk about a lot. You get into the lead, you get into the heat of battle, and that whole common sense thing really takes a back seat. The best drivers will often, you'll find, being able to balance that red mist, being able to think their way through a race and almost kind of outthink their opponents.
Well,
the goal is you want to play chess while everybody's playing checkers.
Whoa, as Roca has to avoid the nearly spinning car of Bart Workman through turn 8 and 9. I wonder if we could get an onboard of Roca. That had to raise a few hairs. Watch the replay here, but I was going to say, Brian, that the one thing about common sense they like to say is that, unfortunately, it's not all that common, so...
that's true. You put a steering wheel in their hands and the bit between their teeth, and that's all gone.
Both Roca and Ooms have had a pretty exciting trip getting through this GTC traffic.
24 minutes left to go, and Ooms elects not to pit once again.
And they both have a lot of clear track ahead of them. The next car is just working their way up to turn 3 right now, as Ooms is crossing the start-finish line right now. So that's about your gap.
Big mistake back there, guys. I don't know if you saw that there back at the Wall of Champions. Jay Dargett going to get hit again with another slowdown penalty, guys.
Let's check out the replay. Is this the second apex that he got it on?
Yeah, this time it was exactly, Joe.
Looks like he's the one to smoke him this time, coming in, and just not enough turning on those front tires to be able to get over that second curb successfully.
And I've heard smoke him if you got him, but I don't think that was talking about the tires. Whoa, gee, he just can't get out of the way.
That's Drew Lidke in the GT3 Mercedes trying to go by.
I'm sure that's causing some fun inner dialogue in Lidke's head.
Well, both of them
outwards.
Both of them got on the radio communicating there. Both actually, Dargert and Hamilton have been getting on the radio trying to communicate with this traffic, letting them know where to pass, being very vocal. So they've been working as well as they could to try and let these guys through. But I understand their hesitance at times to let a few drivers by.
We can keep the camera focused here on Kenneth Rodriguez. Overall lead there. Humberto Roca is actually on pit road right now, but it had stabilized out to about 2 seconds again. But now Roca is throwing down the early card. Like I said, 2 seconds ahead before he pits. Let's see how this cycles out. Is Ooms going to follow him right in?
No, Ooms continued. Ooms was ahead.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is Ooms going to pit this very next lap?
Whether he's
okay. I was just going to say, Paul Hamilton, Jay Dargett, both in the pit now, coming down the pit lane.
So both of them electing to work similar strategies. Workman has yet to pit. He'll continue on. Checking to see who has come into the pits so far.
12.5 second stop for Roca.
Back out and continuing. So is the same with Paul Hamilton, who's out. Dargert with a very long stop. Is Dargert serving a black flag penalty potentially here?
25 seconds and counting.
He's still in there.
Boy, I'll tell you what. Yeah, he is.
He's speeding on entry. There he's rolling.
It could have potentially gotten tires by accident.
Let me go back and look here to see if I can figure out what happened here with him.
One thing that just struck me is we always talk about the differences between real-world racing and sim racing. One of the things that I don't think that you can necessarily have in real-world racing. Oh, I accidentally put tires on my car.
Ooms on pit road, so he saw Roca pit, and he decided the very next lap not to give up any time and try to jump onto pit road as well. We'll keep a track on this because Roca, he's just starting down the casino straight right now, and Ooms is stopped in the box.
2 seconds is going to be a big gap for him to try and overcome by a jump in the pit stop.
Here comes Roca through the wall, through the final chicane.
Oh, and Roca!
Oh no!
Roca into the wall of champions. Just when it was most important, just too much curb. Question is, how much damage did that cause him? Definitely lost him the lead as Ooms is out easily ahead.
I think Roca was going to leap him right there.
And Hume is now challenging for position. Does he know that he's damaged as Roca still pushing the limits of this car? And Hume is dropping back, though. We're going to watch the replay of Roca. I'm not sure why Hume is slowing down this much. He must have gotten a cut course somewhere. As we watch Roca coming up to this last chicane. He was coming in very hot. Didn't take too much curb, but was just too fast and couldn't keep it off that second curb. And It was a tank slapper.
Guys, I do want to confirm that Jay Dargett did in fact go up on the jack. He also had some repair that was done on that vehicle as well. So, boy, the trouble continues for Dargett there. Bad luck for him today.
Kolthoff, meanwhile, leader of the GT3s, is now in and out. He is going to lose the lead temporarily. Lidke goes by.
Rodriguez also on pit road, as well as Workman.
Okay, in GTC class, Bart Workman is in, like Brian, you just said, but Paul Hamilton coming down the casino straight now. This will be interesting to watch here.
Oh, Workman missed the stall by a big margin.
Okay, here comes Hamilton. He's coming into the wall champions now.
I thought that Hamilton would be too far back to be able to make something on Workman, but this could have a profound effect on things. He's still stationary. Now he's going. It's going to be very close. Here comes Workman. Hamilton is through.
Hamilton's through. Boy, he's going to get by him big time here. It's going to be a lot of work. I always get into that. Bart's going to have a lot of work to do.
Gonna have to live up to his name. Overton comes in from third, and I believe that should hand it back. No, not to Dargett, because remember, he had a long stop, so I believe... Oh, no, Kemmerer is in.
Dargett's still going to go back to a podium position there.
But just barely. We missed that because of that long stop. Scott Johnson is now all over the gearbox of that Porsche. Both drivers taking a lot of curb through 3 and 4. Look at him gain coming through 5, so much so that Dargett actually goes defensive down into 6. The battle is on, and Johnson once on the podium. Down the backstretch, he's within the slipstream. A defensive move right in the middle of the road for Jay Dargett, but not all the way to the inside. Johnson takes a peek, comes back to the racing line.
It's a classic battle between Skidmark and All Balls Racing. It's a good one indeed. Dargett doing just enough to keep him in his mirror. Johnson getting a run at him here, though, down into the hairpin.
They're going to be interrupted momentarily. Andrew Horsley coming through in the GTE Ferrari. As they come down the casino straight once again, the straight line speed of these Porsches causing endless headaches for the other two classes. Looks to the inside, takes him under braking, nice and clean. Andrew Horsley to the inside. Ooh, and he miscalculated the speed that they could take that chicane. Has to duck to the inside of Dargett, but because he split them, he gives a little bit of breathing room to Jay.
I think that's the third time we've seen Dargett almost hit with someone getting by.
We haven't checked in on Jordan Weeks in quite a while. Now, he has not pitted yet, but he is sitting in second, and as
he heard you.
He's going to come in for his stop now. Castro's going to get him. Lidke, it might be close with Lidke. Lidke's only coming off the hairpin right now.
Lidke still got a ways to go as he gets into the casino straight. Still got to get under the bridge.
Weeks hit his stall cleanly. Taking his fuel, should not need tires here, and only a 60-minute sprint race for this series. As Lidke exits that second chicane, Weeks is going.
Ooh, they're going to be racing.
Remember, Weeks was way back, starting from the pit lane. And as he finally gets off that pit limiter, he's just behind Lidke.
Yep, Joe, they're going to be racing.
That gap, now that they are both out of the pits and have finished their strategy, is just about a second and a half.
Sean Overton had a moment there in turns 3 and 4. Kind of a lazy spin. It got in there, drill up the replay, just happened to glance up and see what was going on. See it here, gets onto the binders and
brings it around.
Doesn't hit anything.
Yeah, and
That's just-
luckily nobody behind him right there.
That's just one of those embarrassing spins where you're like, I hope nobody saw this. I'm just going to pull away.
Well, we did. We saw it, yeah.
Well, it's the unfortunate side of driving a rear engine car. As soon as it starts to swing around, very difficult to get that rear end back. As you see Overton continue in that 7th position in the GTC's last car running on track at the moment. Right now,
though, sorry, I was going to say Roca's putting some laps down. The damage doesn't seem to affect it. It was about 6 seconds after the pits. It got down to about 5. Oh no! Save it!
Whew. Commentators curse again?
I didn't pick him. Don't you try and rest 2 bodies on me here.
You were the one talking about him, but wow, he is really just pushing this car, though, getting all the way up to the edges of the track, which in the case of Circuit Gilles Villeneuve sometimes includes the wall right there. Anthony James is just up ahead of them, and the Stars and Stripes Porsche is going to be able to get by him here into the braking of the hairpin as he pulls offline for him. What I was going to say was right now our closest battle on track is between Weeks and Lidke. That is for the 3rd position in the GT3s. In fact, he's gained a lot of ground since that pit stop. Weeks, what was 1.5 seconds when he exited, is now down to 4/10. And look at this up ahead. That's Matthew Overton in the Porsche. That's allowing Weeks to gain on Lidke just that little bit more. But he's going to act as a pick and deny an opportunity to look to the inside. Forces Weeks a long way around and actually gets his nose in on Lidke. Matthew actually got a thank you from Lidke. I guess he was glad that he caused a little bit of a problem for his competitor there, Weeks, instead of necessarily sticking his nose in there.
Man, I've continued to watch what Jay Dargett's doing, his progress, really the progress being made by Scott Johnson right now. Been able to make Jay a little bit nervous and at times outbraking him down into these braking zones. Really, it was just Samuel Scott coming through that kind of changed the face of that battle just a bit, but it still rages on and more traffic coming. Jeffrey Hume's the leader coming back through.
Back up to the front of the field with just under 12 minutes. Remember that battle between Tarbox and Hume? Yeah. It's coming back. Hume has been on a couple flying laps lately and has brought that gap down to about 1.5 seconds between those two.
Before that starts to erupt with only 11 minutes left on the clock, let's run down the order here with all the pit stops done. Top 5 in each of your classes. GTE, let's go to Brian Yazik and get the update.
Jeffrey Ooms keeps his 7.5 second lead over Humberto Roca. There we go. Robert Tarbox Jr., as I was talking about there, in the 3rd position, but he is going to have company soon, and that driver is the driver of the 00 Ferrari, Jimmy Hume. He's got Andrew Horsley a solid 17 seconds back, so no pressure from the rear. Everything's out front. Life is good there. In 6th, you've got Samuel Scott, and 7th, Trampus Kolthoff. There we go.
Oh, that's actually into the GT3s.
Whoops. My bad.
At least I wasn't the first one to mix up the GT3 and GTE Ferrari.
There we go.
What do you say we take a look at the GTCs, guys?
Absolutely.
Oh, did I miss?
We haven't done the GT3s yet. Let's go to those. So, anyways, Trampus Kolthoff is your leader in the GT3s. He's got a 14-second lead over at Dexter Castro. I'm sure there's going to be some talk about trying to weigh down that Ferrari from some of the drivers to see if they can slow it down. Castro in 2nd. And we have to jump Peter Hebron to go to 3rd. Drew Lidke is holding on, but just barely. And we might actually get a battle here as Weeks has got to run. He's going to look to the inside, down into turn 8. This is for the final spot on the podium. He's not going to be able to get by, so Weeks is going to stay in 4th. That could change quickly behind them, it's a long ways to Kenneth Rodriguez, who was battling earlier. And then a little bit of an attempt down into the hairpin, sticks his nose, and he's given room on the apex by Lidke, but it's going to be a drag race out of the corner, and the outside momentum is going to go to Drew.
Just a bit. Look for another move here from Weeks.
We did get through our field. We'll go to the GTCs in a moment, see if something happens here. Oh, outbrakes himself a little bit. That's going to cost a ton of time to Weeks. Even though that breaks it up for the GT3s, that gives us an opportunity to throw to Sean for the GTC AM class.
All right, let's look at that GTC class. Of course, Paul Hamilton still up front. Having a good race here. And tell you what, Bart Workman chasing. He's in chase mode now. They're in second. And that is the Skid Mark Motorsports driver there. And go back to third. Jay Dargett still hanging in there. Still very much a factor in this race. Just trying to hang on to that podium position right now. And then we'll go all the way back to fourth. Scott Johnson trying to catch up here. He's got him in sight. Half a second. Gonna break deep here. Oh boy, I'll tell you what. Jay Dargett really has that Porsche on the edge, as it almost looked like that was a slowdown penalty up in front of Scott Johnson, but it was not. So Johnson hanging on to fourth, and then we'll go back to fifth, and it's Anthony James back there in the fifth spot, still in this race, wheeling his Porsche around. The New England driver having a solid run here today, and that is your top five in the GTC class. Ralph Kemmer running in sixth, and Matthew Overton running in seventh. So all of our GTC cars that started are still in the race.
And to take the spotlight back to what I was talking about before, the full field rundown, Hume is on the rear. Not really a bumper. We're going to call it a spoiler of Tarbox Jr. They were even joking with each other. Going down the casino straight, Tarbox came on first and said, "Hi, Jimmy." And Jimmy said, "Hey, how you doing?"
Obviously, these two have battled plenty before in this series. Tarbox not quite tidy through that first hairpin, but doesn't lose out too badly. He's got traffic in the form of Jordan Weeks, though, ahead of him, and look at what this is costing him.
He's looking this way and that way, trying to get by. Meanwhile, Hume gives and brings up the gap there. Let's see. The Ferrari's got to get that grip off of the corner. He's getting to the inside now of that BMW machine. But he's not. He's going to have the preferred lane there. I forgot what corner we were going into.
This
And
turn
both of
8.
them get by. But I would say Tarbox got through there better than Hume.
They are splitting up a battle that's between Lidke and Weeks as well. Both these drivers.
Guys, big contact. Johnson trying to get around Dargett, makes contact with Dargett. Dargett now fighting back down into turn one.
Oh, side by side, they come together.
This is not going to end well, and boy.
Let's go back to that first contact. Dargett is the one who came off the worst after all of that, loses his podium position. You're going to see into this final chicane. It looks like Dargett maybe just struggled to get the power down. He wasn't really on top of the curbs heavily. Tried to come across the track, and just look at them touch. Incredible stuff. That lost him momentum, tries to come back at him, and unfortunately, they banged doors after the first apex, and that sent Dargett around the second one.
Boy, it really did. Dargett loses a lot of time there to Johnson. Johnson moves up to that podium spot.
Tell you what, Lidke and Weeks cannot be separated either. We're seeing a number of battles really get tighter and tighter in these final 10 minutes of the race, as Weeks has closed it back down to 4/10. And this also is for that final podium spot.
Looks like Rodriguez might have an off. Sean, you want to confirm that one?
It looks to be the case, actually. And he hit the wall.
Oh.
Yeah, it doesn't end well for him, actually. He, right there in turn 3, gets curb, and it just keeps going right off to the right there, and he noses it in there hard.
You're going to see here on the replay as it comes around, the hood of the Merc unfortunately goes missing. And he's able to continue, but at a much slower pace.
He bounced it up off of that curve to the inside as we go back live here.
Oh, we got to go to Weeks and Lidke because they're side by side. Weeks looking to the inside, down into the final chicane. Can he get it done? Nice and clean, beautiful move.
Really was.
That was textbook. He's in the slipstream. You can see on the replay. Ducks inside. No fuss, no muss. Just gets it done.
Well, Lidke going to try and gather it up here and maybe make a charge at him. But Joe, you look up there in the left-hand corner of our screen, time is running out, and boy, a run like that and getting past like that can take the wind out of your sails a little bit sometimes.
We've got an interesting development in the overall battle for P3. Tarbox is reporting. Oh, and the GTC lead is on as well. Let's stay on this, but just to give you an update, Tarbox is reporting he's having connection issues.
It was just a couple blinks here and there, but it was going through the final chicane there. So, but it looks like he's stabilized out now. I haven't seen any issues up here.
Well, small field. This has been an exciting end to the race.
I'll tell you what. It took Bart Workman to run the fastest lap of the race in his class, and he has caught Paul Hamilton here in the closing minutes of the race.
P3. We can jump up to it. Sorry,
we got to stay on this for now. Unfortunately,
all right.
It's a battle for the lead because a slow exit by Hamilton gave an opportunity to Workman, but he was caused a pick by Samuel Scott trying to look up the inside. Another lockup of the brakes for Hamilton through 8 and 9 is going to give Workman another chance. Thought maybe he would lose out, but as they come up to the casino hairpin, is he going to stick it inside? He takes a little bit of a look, but just can't get a nose in.
Boy, look at the exit by Hamilton there.
Wow. Sorry to cut you off there, Brian. Is the battle still happening?
It's kind of settled out, but actually, as soon as I say that, here comes Hume, sending it down to the inside of turn 5, and is able to clear a tar box on the exit of that.
Opportunistic stuff. Robert saying that one was his fault. Not sure what happened there.
Not sure either, but Hume just sent it.
Absolute insanity here in the closing minutes of this race.
Can barely catch our breath as we watch that pass on replay and come back live now. You can see Hume has not romped away, but he's put a bit of a gap there. Just has to keep it clean from here to the end. We've only got a minute and 20 some left, which means we should get the white flag this time by for Jeffrey Ooms.
Jeez, poor in the GTC class. Look at this mess right here. Our leader, Paul Hamilton, up in front, Bart Workman back in the mix there, and trying to stay with this battle.
That's Roca and Scott from the GTEs.
Yeah.
Well, they slowed up Workman first. Now are they going to wind up slowing up Hamilton? Not too much into turns 8 and 9. I think Hamilton's going to get a lucky break as Scott's going to be able to outbrake him down into the hairpin. In the meantime, we don't have to go to it, but white flag is coming out for Jeffrey Ooms. And Workman getting on the radio, obviously a little bit upset with all the traffic wreaking havoc with this battle for the lead in the Porsches.
Boy, he was right there a moment ago, and I just don't know if he's going to be able to get him here on this last lap, Joe.
It depends on what Samuel Scott does. He still hasn't overtaken Hamilton. Oh, and is that a slow Roca?
Slow down. Yep, slow down for Bart Workman. No.
No, for Roca. Roca had a slowdown. That was I'm assuming coming out of the final chicane, causing more problems for our GTC leaders, but it doesn't seem to be hurting Hamilton too badly, even though he's the one that's having to deal with it. Oh, and excuse me, Workman did have a slowdown as well. I'm sorry. I was so
Workman
focused
did
on...
have a slowdown, which puts him out of contention to win this race now as Hamilton's able to get away, and he's got traffic behind him, Samuel Scott and Kolthoff.
Oh, and Litke is that an overtake for position with Weeks? It is. He takes third back. Things swapping back and forth. They've got one lap to go, but we'll come back to that battle because Jeffrey Ooms down the casino straight up to the wall of champions. He didn't qualify on the pole, but he's going to take the points where it matters most. Through that final chicane and to the line, the win in the GTEs is going to go to the Ferrari of Jeffrey Ooms. Kolthoff is going to be our next to the line.
Yep, and Hamilton's going to be right there with him, Joe. Both classes going to finish here right together.
Going to be an easy call for these two. Allow us to focus on the battle that's behind. Up to this final chicane, one more time smoking it. We thought it would be a problem for Hamilton, but Hamilton is going to take the win in the GTC class while Kolthoff follows him across the line for first in the GT3s. One last go for Litke and Weeks up to the hairpin. Weeks not close enough. Tries to square off the exit, a little bit wide for Litke. That compromises his run off the corner. That gives the slipstream for Weeks. This is going to be tight into this final chicane. How brave is Jordan? Oh, but he's slowing down. He must have had a slowdown penalty as Litke streaks away. Meanwhile, Dargert in a close battle to the line here with Johnson. And Dargert's going to get it by a hair.
I think Weeks is out of fuel. I'm watching, I'm listening in car, and that thing is stumbling.
Oh.
Missed it by half a gallon?
Disappointment for Weeks. That could have been a podium finish. Thankfully for him, James Stacy. Actually, James Stacy isn't even in his class. It's Kenneth Rodriguez he had to worry about. So that is going to wrap out our fields. We're going to come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. And in between that, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Welcome back to Montreal. We just watched round 6 of the Ricmotech.com challenge, and in the end, it was Jeffrey Ooms who came away with the win, Brian.
That he did. He had Roca. That the end distance there isn't quite a good indicator of how that race was between those two. It was a lot closer throughout moments. Roca suffering damage at the Wall of Champions. Jimmy Hume, though, is finishing a solid 3rd place. Tarbox in 4th in class, and Horsley is rounding out the top 5 with Scott there in 6th.
Then we get to the GT3s. Trampus Kolthoff had it all his own way. Dexter Castro did the best he could and managed a second position. Peter Hebron, of course, racing in the GTEs, is going to be 7th in his class. Drew Litkey managed to get the podium, but he lucked into it just a little bit. We weren't sure how that last lap pass was going to go, and we didn't get to see it because Jordan Weeks, who came home in 4th, sputtered across the line. Rounding out our GT3 class is going to be Kenneth Rodriguez. Sean?
And are you serious? They call these guys the amateur class? The GTCs. Boy, the Porsche's a lot of fun tonight. Paul Hamilton, your big winner, though. Bart Workman, a great fighter this evening, will take 2nd. Jay Dargett barely hangs on to the podium there from Scott Johnson. You know what? Jay Dargett has got to get the Dory Award tonight for me, Joe. I know he's on the podium, but he was in trouble all evening, it seemed like. It was just a mess. But, yeah, what a podium finish. Scott Johnson 4th. Anthony James 5th. Ralph Kemmerer 6th. Matthew Overton will finish 7th. And let's see. Mark Ruggiero, again, did not start this race. So, great race, though, back here in the GTC class tonight.
I enjoyed the racing in all 3 classes, to be honest. And first up, we're going to talk to our overall winner. Jeff Ooms managed another win this season, and Brian has caught up with him.
Jeff, congratulations on the victory here in Canada. Tell us, was that the plan all along? Was to try to outrun Roca there, or were you just kind of letting the race fall under your way as the first part of that race went?
That was a wild race for sure, I gotta say, and big thanks to Humberto there. We finally had a good head-to-head battle. We've been kind of trying to have one all year, but we've kind of been here and he's been there and vice versa. But as far as the plan goes, I kind of just hung up behind him, and then I saw that I could keep with him and whatnot, and I just kept applying pressure. I saw he started to make little mistakes here and there, so I just stuck with it, and then kind of just got alongside him, did a crossover move throughout outside one of the chicanes there, and then made it stick, and then I had really good drive off the corners and just started to inch away from him.
Very nice. Now, when you decided to pit, though, were you aware that Roca had an off back at the Wall of Champions right as you were getting ready to leave your box?
I had come over the air, and I figured that he was really trying to do a really good outlap after his pit stop to try and make up some time and jump me. So, but I did know about it, yes.
Yeah, then the rest of the race, it was just kind of dodging lap traffic and kind of just navigating your Ferrari basically up to the victory lane podium. As the race went, how did you feel trying to navigate? How did you feel trying to navigate this track with some of that slower traffic in some of these tighter chicanes?
It's not too bad. I kind of judged my gap going into the chicane so I wouldn't have to really brake hard and disrupt my line too much. So it wasn't too bad. There wasn't too much traffic out there today. I felt the field was kind of light, so that kind of helped out too. But everybody was, pretty compliant and whatnot. And if you just kind of be patient, then they'll let you by at the opportune time, and everyone goes about the race.
Never a bad way to be. So basically, we're going to let you go on that one. Any final thoughts that you'd like to give a shout out to, or anything like that, setting up our next race in a couple weeks?
Shout out to the Puffin crew. We had a really good outing this week. And then, just shout out to Humberto there for the good race, and then all the competitors, and you guys for broadcasting the race. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night, and congratulations once again, Jeff.
Thank you. You as well. Bye.
Now, of course, Jeffrey Ooms, our winner overall, who actually won on home ground being Canadian, so this has got to be a special win for him. In the meantime, we've caught up with the winner in the GT3s, Trampus Koltov from New York. Trampus, you moved to the GT3 Ferrari the day it was released. Was that a calculated move? Did you feel confident that you'd be comfortable in the car?
Well, first off, we tried to make sure I was doing most of the setups for Ooms in the GTE, so we wanted to make sure the setup would transfer over, and it transferred over perfectly. So as soon as that did, I like how the car drives better than most of the GT3s because it handles almost exactly the same as a GTE car.
Now, obviously, they allow this one free move between cars during the season, and you decided to take it. Do you feel pretty pleased for the rest of the season? Do you think this car will perform as well at the remaining tracks?
Yeah, I think it will. It's a fuel hog. I had to put like 14 gallons in just to finish the race. But yeah, it handles so good. I think iRacing's probably going to nerf it a little bit or buff up the rest of the GT3 cars because it's pretty fast.
We noticed that as well. Now, it seemed like traffic was a bit interesting today because those GTC cars had a lot of straight line speed. Was that frustrating at all?
Yeah, it was. A couple of the straights, they actually pulled away by about a half a second on the straights. I don't know if it's the car here. I don't know how the Mercedes handled compared to this, but yeah, you can't even catch them on the straights.
It certainly caused a little havoc from what we saw, but almost everybody managed to get to the finish line. Very few retirements today. Again, congratulations on the win. We look forward to seeing you at Road Atlanta.
Thanks for broadcasting this for us.
That was Trampus Koltov, winner in the GT3s. I believe Jay Dargert is ready to talk to Sean Ambrose after his third place finish in the GTCs.
Jay, that was some fight there at the end of the race. You want to talk us through those last couple laps, buddy?
Yeah, it was the whole race was a battle. With all the different traffic, I actually came in here to see if Honey Baked would come in, and I don't know if he knows where to go, but the whole race was good. I made a bad mistake in the pits. I forgot to turn the tires off and ended up taking a couple of tires, and then the car was pretty squirrely. But Scott and I had a great battle at the end. We banged some fenders, wadded up some metal, but all in good fun.
Yeah, and you talked about the traffic. Man, they were all over you tonight. I mean, you almost got hit 3 or 4 times. I mean, so close that you couldn't have slipped a sheet of paper between the cars. What's it like when you see that coming up in the mirror there behind you?
Well, hopefully the guys, and a lot of them did on this track during the practice sessions, come in and race with you during the practice so they can see where your lines are through the individual passing corners and where to pass. So most of the guys it was okay with. The guys that came in way late and didn't get to run with us during practice, those are the guys that we had a little bit of a challenge with. But for the most part, Humberto and the other guys, they know where to pass, when to be patient, and let us keep our little cars wound up tight so we can have a great race.
Well, I'll tell you what, as far as the championship goes and the points, you kept the guy you were chasing right behind you, and Johnson there finishing in 4th. You're in 3rd, so it might be a little bit of a swing in the points. I don't know if it'll be enough to actually get you up there, but yeah, you did everything you needed to as far as the end game goes.
Well, I thought I had a good chance of winning the thing. I was much faster than the 2 guys up front, but I made some bonehead mistakes, and in racing you can't make those mistakes, and so I let him get away. And so yeah, Scott and I and Bart and Honey Baked, we all race real well together, so it's always a good time.
All right, well, Jay, thanks for another entertaining race here, and we will see you next time, my friend.
You got it, brother. Have a great night. Thanks for doing what you do, guys.
And our thanks to Jay Dargert for putting on another great show, Joe. And I think Brian is going to talk to James Hume.
James, congratulations on the result tonight. How was it out there?
In a word, pressure, man. Robert Tarbox is a class act, and he was all over me towards the end. In retrospect, I think I took a little bit too much fuel at the stop, and he just simply had the pace on me. So it was everything I could do to stay in his slipstream. And at the end there, he got a slowdown penalty coming over the first chicane, and took advantage of it, and then tried to use traffic as best I could to pick when necessary. Bring it home for another podium for Puffin.
Yeah, I mean, now don't sell yourself short. When that was going on, the gap was closing right before the off. So like I said, don't sell yourself too short though. But really, kind of all in all, as the race was going, seemed like you're kind of on your own pace from the very start. As a driver, is that a really hard discipline to get into?
Yes and no. It can be advantageous because there's no chance of getting target fixation or missing a brake marker because you're thinking about something else. But yeah, it's easy to lull yourself to sleep as well. So it could be a double-edged sword. But if you stay alert and just hit your marks, then oftentimes it can be a great asset.
Hey, sounds great. Any kind of final thoughts that you'd like to leave us with for tonight?
Well, I just got to say, great job by Puffin Racing, all the guys tonight in the Ferraris, both classes, stand-up work, and of course to the team principal, Jason Lundy. You guys, obviously, for the broadcast, and next time I'll try to come in with a little bit more practice and give those top runners a run for their money.
Well, hey, there you go. We will catch you on down the road, James.
Take care, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jimmy Hume finishing in third today in the GTE class. Second place finisher was Dexter Castro over in the GT3s. And Dexter, we saw you behind Peter Hebron in the GTEs for quite a while, almost half the race. Were you comfortable there, or was that hurting your race?
Well, it wasn't really hurting my race in terms of a position. I was slightly faster, but I wasn't going to do any sort of risky move trying to get around him. It was easy enough just to sit in his draft and wait until there was an opportunity to jump in front.
And that's something that we did think about as well, that we understand the BMW's top-end speed tends to be a bit of a sticking point. Did you consider being able to run behind him a bit of a help on that?
Well, no. Being that close behind another car is not really that much of an advantage because you lose all the downforce in the corners, even with the draft. It was more about just being able to sort of just keep up and just keep pace there in a calm manner. It wasn't. You'll always know how poor my pace is at a track by how little I'm pushing. And this track I just had no feel for. I didn't really get in much practice, and then I was having a slow update, so I got even less practice. But really, there wasn't really much competition from behind or in front, so it was just sort of a calm race.
Well, I have to say, not pushing too hard at a track like this isn't necessarily an unwise thing with the way it can bite you. Commiserations that you didn't get the win, but congratulations on a second.
Yep, thanks, Joe.
As Dexter Castro, second place in the GT3s. Unfortunately, we got to wrap up. Apologies if last couple interviews are a little bit short, but we got to close things out for today. And of course, we want to thank Ricmotech for sponsoring this series as well. We want to thank Miguel Alcrudo for organizing things behind the scenes. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Amjad, Sean, and Brian, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel or Facebook at /Global Sim Racing Channel. Next race, as we mentioned, going to be Road Atlanta, a classic out here in sports cars. That'll be Wednesday, September 20th, so you got a little bit of a break at 9:45 p.m. Eastern when that broadcast will start. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.